The security guard at my college told me something before he disappeared. I think about it every single day. I wasn't supposed to be on campus that late. It was around 2 a.m., end of semester. I'd fallen asleep in the library and woken up to empty chairs and flickering lights. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like something just stopped moving right before you looked. I packed my bag fast and headed for the side exit. That's where I found Mr. Osai. He was the overnight security guard. Big guy, quiet, the kind of man who nodded instead of spoke. I'd seen him maybe 100 times over 2 years, and we'd never had a real conversation. He'd check my ID, nod, move on. That was our entire relationship. That night he was standing at the end of the corridor, just staring at the door to the basement maintenance level. Not checking it, not walking toward it. Just standing there, completely still, with his flashlight pointed at the floor. I almost walked past him. He spoke first. "You feel that?" I stopped. "Feel what?" He didn't look at me, still watching the basement door. "Some buildings collect things," he said. "Not ghosts. Not like the move is. Just wait. Bad moments that never finished happening. You ever walk into a room and feel like you interrupted something? I had. I didn't say so. This building does that," he continued. "Has since I started here 11 years ago. But lately it's different. Lately it feels like whatever is down there," he paused, tilted his head slightly like he was listening, "is finished waiting." I laughed. Nervous, short, embarrassed. He finally looked at me, and I want to be careful about how I describe his expression because I've turned it over in my mind 1,000 times since. He didn't look frightened. He looked like a man who had already accepted something the rest of us hadn't been told yet. "Go home," he said quietly. "Don't use the side exit after midnight anymore. Don't come back to this building after dark." "Why?" He looked back at the basement door. "Because I've been watching that door for 11 years, he said. "And last Thursday it was open when I arrived, and it was open when I left, and I have never once unlocked it." I left, walked fast, didn't run, told myself he was just a strange old man who'd worked too many night shifts alone. That was 6 weeks ago. "Mr. Osai hasn't been on campus since that night." I asked the front desk. They said he left without notice. No forwarding contact. No explanation. 11 years at the same job, and he just didn't come back one morning. I pass that building every day. I have not used the side exit once. And last week, walking past at dusk, I glanced at the small ground-level window that looks into the basement. The light was on down there. Campus security told me that level has been decommissioned for years. No one has the key. Shadow kernel submitted by /u or round analyst 9758. Link comments. Bloody beautiful. The cosmetic nurse had to get this procedure just right. There was so much writing on it, so much scrutiny, and many watchful, discerning eyes. "If you could just look straight ahead," she said, snapping on latex gloves. She leaned in and gently applied pressure to the cheekbone beneath her index finger, determining the cushion of flesh above had a decent amount of elasticity. This would only require half the amount of filler her clients usually demanded. Yes, just a tweak here and there, she thought. She decided on administering biofiller, a natural compound made entirely from the client's blood. After taking blood, she placed the vials into a centrifuge machine and began the spinning process, separating plasma from the red blood cells. "I just need you to hold still for a moment." With the machine whirring in the background, she started to mark up, drawing white lines onto the cheeks to determine injection points. The trick was to inject just enough to add fullness, she thought. Natural was imperative. There was a fine line between natural and looking like a Punch and Judy doll. Now the machine had spun its magic. A golden syrup sat atop the red blood cells like oil sitting on top of water. She extracted the precious plasma into new vials, slotted them into a hot water bath, and left the plasma to thicken. She then placed 4 syringes into a stainless steel dish. The plasma had thickened nicely, and she drew up the first vial, letting a drop or 2 drip from the needle. "You provided me with a good amount of blood," she said, wiping the first injection point with an alcohol wipe. "We should have enough left over to think about plumping your lips." "Well, okay, but you promise I'll win this year's beauty pageant, Mommy?" Submitted by /U or Logical Roll 1382 link comments. Tail. There was a hole in the bunker. The babies were huddled in the corners, the adults guarding their small pink bodies with their own, trying not to show any pain as the ice balls struck them. Squeaksworth was already missing a foot from the last storm, but that didn't prevent him from volunteering when it became clear someone would have to patch the roof. What was the point of sending an able-bodied adult outside to die? His own children had long since moved out of the den, and his life was nearing its natural end. Arthritis crept up the tip of his tail further each day. His body would soon be useless. Might as well go out with a bang, but that didn't mean he wasn't scared. The moment he stepped out of the bunker, an ice ball landed an inch away, causing him to jump back, tiny heart pounding. Squeaksworth squinted up, charting the path he'd take to get to the top of the concrete tube that served as a shelter for his den mates. There were rocks lying around. Could he carry one to the top of the pipe to plug the hole? Not a chance, not with the way the ice balls were pelting the ground around him, crashing and rolling. The sky was caving in, and he knew he only had a moment to act. He'd have to climb and hope there was rubble he could use on the top of the pipe. Squeaksworth's 3 working paws felt the side of the tube. The concrete was porous enough for him to find purchase, but slippery from the morning's rain and freezing cold to the touch. That was a good thing, it turned out, because as soon as he'd made it a couple inches up, an ice ball bounced off the pipe and took out his back paw. It was so numb from the cold he didn't notice until he tried to take a step and the stump met concrete. Squeaksworth glanced back and saw the trail of blood behind him, which made him reel and almost lose his grip. He had to focus. Gaze locked on the top of the pipe, Squeaksworth dragged himself up, dodging ice balls with each step. As he rounded the top, he suddenly felt lighter, his balance compromised, and it took him a moment to realize he now only had half a tail. The storm screamed around his tiny, broken body, echoing in his head. Squeaksworth approached the hole, and his heart sank. If there had been rubble around, the storm had long since washed it away. He could hear screams from inside the pipe and knew the adults were breaking too, bleeding out in front of the babies. There was only one thing left to do. Squeaksworth pulled himself to the hole and looked in at the gore below and yelled a word of reassurance down to the pups as if they could hear him over the howling wind and crashing ice. Then he stretched his body over the hole. Squeaksworth heard his spine break under an ice ball, but mercifully couldn't feel a thing. A peaceful warmth was spreading through him, and the ice balls landing around him took on a dreamy, glowing quality. It was almost pretty. He thought it was odd that, even though he knew he had no more tail, he could still sense its ghost behind him. He'd see it soon, he knew, in that land where brave mice whined up and only hoped that reunion could wait until the storm ended, when his body had served its purpose and the pups were safe. Submitted by /U or VB Solentine link comments.